Marketing, entrepreneurship, and all things small business. You're listening to the Profit 911 podcast. Now, here's your host, Justin Miller.
Hey, we're back again. Look at that.
Just like we were in,
we never die.
That's
never
right.
die. We're going to have to get like a new intro and call it like the Jurassic
I was just
Marketing
thinking that.
Podcast.
I'm like, we need to upgrade that intro.
We're about ready to full forward with the Jurassic Marketing stuff. But for today, it's the Profit 911 podcast. We're talking about the fortune being in the follow-up. So not that I needed reminded of it, but my buddy Michael Rosbrook sent me an email, and all it said is the fortune's in the follow-up. Because last week, you and I were chatting, I was in Charleston for his big annual summit virtual event broadcast out of studios down there, which is interesting, by the way, to just as an aside to, fly somewhere in the country just to do a remote broadcast.
That's interesting. That's true. When you showed me pictures, you were texting me, I'm like, where's he at? And then when you told me, I'm like, why would it be located there? And I'm like, not in LA or New York or whatever, but it looked like a really put together
the company was Sage Studios, and they knew what they were doing for sure, and had a pretty fancy studio with the giant Zoom wall.
Mm-hmm.
There's other fancier software I'm sure actually running, but for lack of a better term, the giant Zoom wall with 400 faces on it that you present in front of. So kind of cool. But of course, a little behind the scenes baseball on that particular one. So that event, I am not a paid speaker at. And I am not able to sell during my session. So there was 45 minutes of real educational content, which is not always the case. Those that know the speaking for a living gigs, there's usually one or the other. Either you're a paid speaker or you're selling something. And there's rarely any in between. This is one of the rare exceptions of an in between where all I'm able to do is speak and passively, of course, give examples of ways that we can help people with direct mail marketing, which puts a huge sales burden on following up afterwards with anyone we can identify. So no magical leads, although I will say there were a fair amount of people that found their way to our website during the broadcast, which I didn't share the website. They had to actually, use that wonderful thing called Google. And they ended up on our campaign manager's calendar. However, that event had hundreds and hundreds of attendees. And of course, I was not there just to see my friends. I love them. But, travel days and everything like that, we have to make some money. So we're talking a little bit about what happens now. So if in your business you have the opportunity to be in front of a large group of potential buyers, that's amazing, first off. But most of the money is in what happens after that occurs. So if I just dropped it right now and we took the, handful of leads that came in and closed a few deals, I guess technically we would make money. As a company overall, we'd go bankrupt doing that all the time. Unless I wanted to be on the road twice a week doing that, which I guess would be something you could do. For me, it doesn't fit. I'd end up divorced really quick.
Yeah, with a family and children, that's a lot harder to do. If you're a single 32-year-old who's built a business, that's maybe you love to travel. I like to travel too, but there's at some point I'm like, I just want to get home. Not even talking about travel issues, just like being on the road and being away from family.
And as you know, we don't live by a major airport. We got a decent-sized regional airport, but a 45-minute presentation quickly becomes 3 days.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So the equation matters a lot. And in the previous business I had, like the event business, we did a lot of wedding shows. This is another situation. So an expo would be another situation where you're in front of a lot of potential buyers of your service. And, I was always somewhat amused because you could look around the show and you could see the vendors there, the ones that were just writing business there, which sounds like the dream. And then they didn't do anything after that. So they lived on whatever they got there, and it was on to the next show, which they probably made money, which is fine. I would prefer to do both, though. Follow up after that, because I can tell you in that business, we probably did 4 times as much business after the show as we did during it. I don't know if that was your experience or if that's changed over the years.
Probably 2 or 3 times, yeah. There's always a few who may already know you or are looking and are ready to do business right now, but yeah, I'd say 2 or 3 times afterwards.
Yeah, and it's no secret that we sponsor events too, and we have booths at events with the Jurassic marketing stuff and the inflatable dinosaurs everyone loves, which I did bring an inflatable dinosaur to Charleston with me.
Nice.
On stage, and the AV guys loved it, by the way. They had a dinosaur running across the LED wall behind me.
Would like to have seen that.
And then it took me a while to realize that, my walk off music was the Jurassic Park theme. They did that for me.
Sure.
So
Okay. All right, so here's an unrelated question then. You're used to being able to speak on stage in front of people, big or small.
yeah.
Was that different, just having that wall of video monitors and having to look at a camera?
So I would say that for sure it would be a skill set, and this was the first time I had done that setting. Of course I've done Zoom presentations and webinars and stuff. It was very clear that with more rehearsal and at bats, you could do a very interactive segment that way that you couldn't do any other way. Now, I didn't have time to have a lot of interaction. I had a 45-minute slot. It's not a lot of time.
Yeah.
There were, let's see. There were 10 monitors displaying the webcam feeds.
Okay.
With like 50-ish heads, whatever the maximum number of heads you can get on one is. And then there were 2 very large scrolling monitors with different chat feeds.
Okay.
And it is quite difficult, even being used to being on stage, catching anything in the chat off in the wings.
It's different. It's almost like being a weatherman and having to look off camera. Yeah,
with someone else controlling what's on the monitor.
Yeah, that weather map behind you that's not a real map. That's why they're always facing to the side, because they're looking at that sidewall. But yeah, I think that would be a skill. And you see, the Tony Robbins and other people. A lot of them are doing this now. It's the thing. I would think it would be weird not to have human beings like 10 feet, that interaction, facial expressions, even when you have a monitor that's got 50 people on it. I
didn't have my glasses on, or I could have caught.
Well, I can see where you start. I bet if you watched your performance back, you would see places where maybe you're like, you could tell that you're focusing. You're like watching the chat's, feed or whatever.
Yeah, for the most part, the presentation I gave was pretty much monologue. I tried a few times to just catch some chat comments to let people know that I was paying attention to them, so they didn't drift off.
Live,
call out a name or two. But if you did a lot of that, you had hundreds of attendees, like I said, so the chat would actually scroll faster than you could read.
Jeez.
You had like a 3-foot tall monitor, but it's scrolling up as fast as it could go there. I will say the other thing is they didn't have on any of the displays the actual live broadcast feed.
Okay.
So there were 2 primary monitors that I had behind one of the cameras I was watching, and they were, my current slide and my slide notes. Okay. And I guess I was looking down to see my timer too, quite a bit.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar with speaking on stage, there's a countdown timer for you. You don't want that thing to go red and start counting up, if you like the host anyway. So that's primarily where I was focused, was on those. But yeah, AV crew is completely in charge of what the live out is. I didn't have control over that. So I have my slides, but whether or not that slide's being displayed is kind of by them as an unbiased producer.
Yeah.
Does this add value right here or not? They're making that judgment call the whole time. So I don't actually know what the display out looked like, but I tried. That I could have in my mind enough that I'm like, all right, I'm going to skip through 5 of these transitions because it's probably not up here.
Yep.
And
but that whole concept fascinates me, because I think obviously for Michael, it's worth it to do that versus throwing a full on-site scale event.
Yeah. So this particular event, they moved virtual in 2020, I think. Whenever the first bout of COVID was, this was a quick pivot to online, which many people had to, and they actually did really well online and have continued growing that, and it's done well. Yes, I like face-to-face events still. They're both expensive to produce, so obviously face-to-face, you got a lot of logistics with attendees and stuff, but to do the virtual event right, you do as well. And they put a ton of work into it. They check in people one by one to make sure they can run the cameras. And it's a webcam on event, like 90% plus, you're supposed to have it on, and they do. So they do all that. They send out event boxes beforehand. They do everything right, so it probably still is close in cost to produce.
Yeah. Well,
and the AV crew costs just as much.
Well, that's why he's going to Charleston, because they obviously have figured out a way to do that right.
Yeah, he has a studio in his office for smaller ones, but this is the big thing. It has to be right. There's a crew of, I'd say there were 8 to 10 actual members of the event staff there, plus his team.
Wow.
So behind the scenes, there's a dozen plus people working long days. But yeah, it was fun. It was a unique skill set. Obviously, some better than others. I would give myself an average grade on that particular performance.
If you did it 7 more times, that score would get higher.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd get more used to it.
And the entertainment background makes up for some. I mean,
that's true.
How do we politely say if you suck at presenting, this would spiral that down? I think, okay, let's say it amplifies it. I'd say if you're a good speaker already, this tool can be used to amplify it. If you suck, it's going to be really bad. But yeah, so what happens now afterwards? We need a bunch of money.
The minute the cameras go off, you're like, all right, how do I reach these people?
I mean, we were doing that beforehand, and there were some tech things that we fixed beforehand that I happened to catch. But yeah, so what happens now besides the 5? So there is a thing behind the scenes that we were able to do a little form submission during my presentation, which if they filled it out, then I get their contact info and I can follow up with them. And we will, of course. But that's it. So I had to push people there. And as soon as I'm off stage, that's gone. That form's not up there anymore.
Yeah.
So I had to get within 40 minutes. And we had a couple hundred people do that. So about half the audience.
Okay. That's not bad. Or is it, I don't know, it's 50%. Is that good?
I'd say that's pretty good for a 45-minute presentation with only casual pushes to it.
Sure. Because you're not really, you're not selling. You can mention it, but you're not like,
no, I didn't even say what you were going to get. I said I was going to send you a gift, which I am. So we have follow-up boxes that are in production here right now. Could we have produced them last week? Probably, but as our own stuff always comes last. So we have follow-up kits going out that are intended to open the door for a sales rep or whatever you want to call them. Here, they're campaign managers, but something that physically gets in people's hands before we make a phone call so that we can say, hey, we sent you blah, blah, blah. Did you get it?
Yeah.
So we'll be sending boxes. They'll have a Jurassic marketing swag item in them.
Nice.
They will have an educational piece. Now, everyone already got my book before the event. So we have a smaller report going in there. I think we have a postcard going in there. We have some sort of edible snack going in there.
Naturally. I was going to say, is there brownies in there?
There's not brownies, but there'll be something to eat
Some kind of, that's good.
That's on brand. And then there is some pricing information.
The dinosaur eggs I can eat or what? When you say on brand, I think, well, what possibly could that be?
Can I give away everything on here? So the current one is Jurassic Park fruit snacks or Jurassic World fruit snacks.
I like that.
However, we end up emptying the shelves at all the supermarkets. So the 2 Walmart deliveries that were supposed to come today, they gave us a fourth of what we ordered.
Of course.
And now someone's going to go run around the rest of the grocery stores. And
how many Walmarts are there in the Quad Cities? Like 4 or 5? You should hit them all.
Yeah, now they're going to have to hit the Jewel Oscos and the Hy-Vees and all the Midwest chains here.
Everywhere. Road trip.
I wonder if then the store's like restocks, like, man, these things are hot. And
it makes you wonder.
They order too many now.
Yeah, then they'll be sitting there.
But anyhow, so that will go out. Of course, we will email. Of course. And then we'll begin phone calls. And we can also do text messaging if need be.
How many of those people do you think will preemptively call you before you get a chance to connect with them?
Oh, maybe 10%, I would say.
Okay.
So maybe 10% of the list will be proactive on their own, get going. Beat the line.
Do you find that those more proactive people, do they end up spending more? Do they last longer? Do they stay longer? Or is it just it's top of mind and they do it now?
I don't know about that. It's an easier sale because they're clearly interested.
Sure.
Like they proactively went out of their way. It's one of those situations where now the job is to not screw up the sale rather than create the sale.
Yeah.
Which is a valid job. And, you certainly can screw up sales. But no, so maybe 10% reach out, do that on their own. We'll probably get to speak to half the list. And by speak, I mean they'll answer the phone at some point, but not an in-depth conversation.
Sure. Yeah.
So half of it's gone. So, I mean, our follow-up kit's probably going to cost $10-20 each. So, I mean, that's got a couple grand going out.
Yeah.
Maybe $3,000. And just to talk to 100 people. Of that, maybe half will get pushed to a real conversation. Be it a Zoom session, which would be the preferred, or they'll just force us to go back and forth with a lot of questions via email, which is not preferred.
Sure.
Also, this is kind of when we're in post-event follow-up, it's the time of year where the sales staff gets to play favorites a little bit.
Okay.
So those that follow the rules and do what they're supposed to get dealt with more quickly.
Sure.
If you become a pain in the ass, like you're going to get followed up with, but it's going to be last.
Makes sense.
So we don't always have that liberty, but this time of year we do. And yeah, we will continue to follow up forever. There's a lot of spots in the business that follow-up needs to be in place. And let's take a quick break. I'm going to drink some of my pumpkin cream cold brew from Starbucks.
Super extra large. You're like, just give me the big one.
So when you redeem the Starbucks points, the stars, every size costs the same amount of stars.
Well, then give me the big one.
Oh, this is your marketing words of wisdom. If you're redeeming your Starbucks points,
go big.
Get the big one.
That's right.
Also, the add-ons don't cost anything, so just
really
load that up with more sugar.
Great. 2:00 comes, you're sleeping in your office.
Yes. Anyhow, we'll take a quick break. We'll be back, and let's talk about what happens after the appointment. So the ones that followed through did what they were supposed to, and then didn't give us a credit card. What do we do then? We'll be back.
And now back to the Profit 911 podcast with your host, Justin Miller.
Okay, we're back. We're talking event follow-up, or actually just lead follow-up in general. And I talked about how we get them to talk with us, so how we get to the consult. But then, what happens if they don't buy? As much as I would love everyone to just give us money the first time they talk to us, it just doesn't happen. Yeah, I actually made a comment, I think, at the very end of my presentation last time that, of course we want you to succeed. But we want you to have lofty enough goals that when you have that success, then you spend more to hit the next goal. And therefore, we make more money, you make more money. And, that's the line's all kind of in the delivery, because otherwise I sound like I just want to take your money.
Yeah.
But I do want to take your money while providing more value as we do it.
Well, sure. Yeah.
But yeah, people don't always willingly give out their credit cards. So if they have met with you or whatever your first contact point is, and they don't take the next step, which I don't know if I have the percentage here off the top of my head. I could tell you in the last business or in a couple specific situations how many that is. And it depends how many obstacles to meeting with you there is. So if you put a bunch of hurdles before they can meet with you, your close rate will be higher, but your volume will be less. If you make it easier to meet with you, such as the case with a larger company with the sales team, you really want to have those conversations to move people forward. The close ratio tends to go down a little bit. And all of a sudden, we're back in a chasing mode again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny, we get the emails that are like, yes, I do want to move forward. I'll let you know when I'm ready. In my world, those two statements are contradictory.
Yeah, that's a no.
That was a literal email that came in yesterday. And hopefully if you're listening, I don't offend you, but those are not the same thing. There's a clear next step, and you didn't take it. But no, so then what happens? Well, you fall down the list of favorites again, and if we don't have enough time, you go by the wayside for a while. You are put into automatic follow-up. So you're going to get our newsletters forever. You're going to get any mass emails we do until you unsubscribe. And I say those as an aside, but those actually are very important parts of warming that lead back up again. A lot of times it's a waiting game till something changes, a need changes. I tell these tax resolution people that they help people with IRS debt. And I'm like, hey, they didn't get the IRS debt overnight. The IRS is hounding them. It's probably been years. It was probably an error or a problem 3 years ago. It doesn't mean they want to solve it right now. I realize you want to solve this problem for them, but it may not be an important problem to them right now.
Or the pressure from the IRS isn't significant enough that they're ready to deal with it. That's, I suppose.
Yeah, so something has to change to where all of a sudden it's important to resolve this issue. Something could be like a spouse getting pissed off.
Yeah.
It could be being denied for something else they want. Oh, shit, I can't get a car loan or a mortgage.
Yep.
It could be something like that. Or it could be just finally they're fed up and ready to deal with it. All of those are outside of our control. We didn't cause that to happen by marketing to them.
True.
But we do want to be there when they make that decision. So this is why appointment no sale follow-up, as it's called, is important. So they had an interest or an inquiry. We've identified them as a real lead. For some reason, the timing's off. Now, like in part of your world, the wedding world,
See, that's what I was
there's
just thinking
a
to
very
myself.
real deadline.
Yeah, I mean, with the ones I don't sell, I just move on at this point because my
'cause-
close rate is so high. If I get them if I get the right client potential, I mean, if I try to close you and I'll get back to you. Those people never get back to you.
Yeah. Well, and they have an added deadline. They have an actual
Absolutely.
date where this
Mhm.
expires, and you have set inventory. You know, there's a lot of things stacked in your favor for closing that.
Yeah,
set.
it makes me realize how much back end work I'm not having to do because of the business that I'm in, or at least that business. But yeah,
Yeah, for a lot of other businesses, the equivalent would be like, "Hey, we're thinking of getting married sometime."
yep, yeah. We'll let you know when.
Oh, okay. Is that a lead? You might establish. Oh, yeah, they look like they'll probably get married. So
Yeah, someday.
So they are a lead. You know, how much follow up could we invest in this? And okay, yeah, maybe emails are justified. Maybe newsletters are justified. How many phone calls are justified beyond that, or like real attention? That varies. And a lot of times we'll have to do a mass event like a webinar or something. We'll likely do a follow-up webinar now, which will be, I don't know, 70, 80% overlap with the content they just heard, but maybe get them excited again
Yeah.
and push them over the edge, or something to where it's not a one-on-one type sales environment. So a little
Yeah,
less
if you're not
commitment.
excited about getting married, I can't get you more excited. I mean, if you're getting married and you're not excited, I can't help you.
Yeah. So we need people excited about growing their businesses,
Yeah.
which not everyone is. So this actually floored me. We started a division, like 3 years ago, that was kind of aimed at the traditional CPA and tax prep community.
Mm-hmm.
And I flew around to a half dozen trade shows and exhibited to have conversations with people and see what the needs were. And I was amazed how many times people were like, yeah, we got our book of business, we're good. Like, we're just going to ride this out till retirement. We're going to serve the current clients. And
Because it's consistent.
we don't want any new ones. Like this floored me, Kevin. Like,
Yeah, that would be, well, yeah, your personality, my personality, we're always looking for, like, where can we expand? Where can we grow? That's a very comfortable level, I guess.
I'd be bored as shit though. Like,
Yeah.
I'm an
Well,
entrepreneur.
yeah, but-
I want growth. I want change.
I'd be bored too if I ran numbers all day long for
Wow.
people. But that's, I mean, I know accountants. I think my accountant loves this job because it's what he loves. But I'm like,
I mean, I don't want to say it was the minority, but the ones that were actively invested in
that
growth
is
were
interesting.
pretty-
You would think,
pretty-
that's that they're not even interested in discussing it or like even thinking about
No,
it.
and it wasn't that I was going to sell anything. I could have casual conversations outside of the booth and
Yeah.
try and get to really what's going on. And they're just, happy kind of doing what
I'm
they
good.
do. And, that to us is not a good lead.
That's
Like, we've identified that there's an area we can help them, but they don't see a need. This is critical though, because this is the difference for me speaking to groups of business owners or groups of marketing minded business owners.
mm-hmm.
I need one hurdle further. So we have an event we're sponsoring in October that is real estate agents,
Mm-hmm.
which is an audience we serve. It's not a major portion of our business. And part of the reason is because, it's so fragmented and there's so many people just serving their friends and family in the
Yeah.
industry. And
Yeah.
a lot of them are getting wiped out right now because the industry is getting tougher. But I was introduced to the producer of the event, and, really quick, I'm trying to feel out, okay, are these just real estate agents coming to hang out, or these guys, are they actively invested in growth? Like, what's the other content? What's the connection?
Yes.
And I never quite know, because event producers, for the most part, they're selling you too. Like they want,
Sure.
They
Well,
want your
I mean,
money.
how many times did you go to a convention in Vegas and it's like, that's why they're in Vegas and not in Cleveland, because it's a vacation
Well,
on
yeah.
top of,
Well, in special event world, your world, a lot of them are just coming to check out gear,
unfortunately, yeah. Just
which is the fun stuff. It's
it
the
is
toys.
fun. I mean, it's all, but you're right. It's, if you're not looking to specifically grow, you can still have some time away and maybe buy some stuff. But yeah, you're right. I
Which
mean,
is not a good spot for me to exhibit.
no, that doesn't help you at all.
Like, if I'm selling like widgets and toys, that's
Mhm.
great. If I'm selling, let's help grow your business, not so much. So yeah, everyone has to make that decision, kind of qualify leads a little bit. It's also the difference in my world between who you're marketing to. Are we marketing to people buying your service, or are we marketing to referral sources? We do a ton of referral marketing, as you know.
Yeah.
I actually don't like in consumer marketing. We do it because we're a marketing agency.
Sure.
But I would much rather get referral sources because it's a different conversation. But anyhow, we follow up forever. It happens to do with resources. We're actually hiring in another account manager right now to help deal with some of this follow-up. Otherwise, we end up with a situation where our reps are busy enough and cherry picking, and there's still more money out there.
Yeah.
And yes, we have capacity in our production department to serve. So, and when we don't have capacity, I will grow further so we have capacity. So I practice what I preach as far as that goes.
Makes sense.
Anything we missed in follow-up here? I mean, essentially, the blunt way to put it, and I mean, I heard it from Dan Kennedy. I'm sure he heard it from somewhere else, is, as far as follow-up and when you stop, it's buy or die.
Yeah. Yeah.
Buy, die, or unsubscribe.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, if you unsubscribe from email, that to me just tells you don't want email. I'm still going to mail you unless you let me know.
That's interesting.
Totally not interested.
I would never thought about that. You're right. You're only asking me to not connect with you one way. That's true.
Yeah, well, I said it as an aside, but I guess we could briefly discuss it here.
That makes sense. A lot of business owners would take that personally and say, well, she doesn't want to talk to me at all, so I'm just stop all forms of communication.
Yeah, no, I unsubscribe from a lot of email lists where I still have a relationship with the company. I just don't want the email you're sending, or what you're sending is not of value to me.
Mm-hmm.
If you send me a piece in the mail, I'll still glance at it. I might recycle it, but it doesn't mean the relationship's dead just because I don't want you calling my cell phone.
Yeah.
Just because I unsubscribe to text messages. Now, as a marketer, don't take that personal. Use every media to your advantage.
Yep.
Don't, make sure you're playing by the rules. But elimination of one media is not elimination of relationship. And if you're reliant on one and only one media, you should be scared for just that reason.
That's the problem. Yeah, that's true.
If I'm just sending broadcast emails and someone unsubscribes and they're completely out of my world now, the cheapest thing to do was retain that client, and you're out there chasing the next one. So that's it for follow-up. We'll follow up with another episode soon enough. And hell, maybe it'll be a Jurassic marketing intro.
Oh, maybe.
Probably not. At some point.
Thanks for listening to the Profit 911 podcast. Be sure to subscribe and leave your comments. For more information on how Profit 911 Consulting can help grow your service business, visit profit911.biz.